You know how it is when you stay for ages in a city. There are certain places you know you really ought to visit, but somehow it never quite seems the right time to go and do so. Thus it was for me with the Ming tombs, which lie some 40 kilometers to the northwest of Beijing. They were listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site way back in August 2003. Not that that really means an awful lot, since almost every second tourist attraction in China seems to be designated with some kind of heritage status these days. The Ming dynasty spanned 277 years, from 1368 to 1644, and during that time they had 16 emperors. The majority of the Ming tombs, containing 13 of the 16 emperors, can be found in Chongping district and are collectively known as the 13 tombs of the Ming dynasty. I guess you could think of them as China's answer to Egypt's Valley of the Kings. The site on the southern slope of Qianshu Mountain was chosen by the third Ming emperor, Yongle, who reigned from 1402 to 1424. You will of course remember that it was he who relocated the capital of China from Nanjing to its present location in Beijing. The subsequent emperors placed their tombs in the same valley, which covers a total area of over 120 square kilometers. Okay, I know what you're asking yourself. What about the other three big cheeses? Well, not unsurprisingly, the ChangLing tomb of the first Ming emperor, Hongwu, is located near his capital of Nanjing. The second emperor, Zhengwen, was overthrown by Yongle, and no one knows what happened to him. Emperor Jingtai was also not buried here, as Emperor Tianshun denied him an imperial burial. Instead, Jingtai was buried west of Beijing. Incidentally, the last Ming emperor who was buried here was Chongzhen, who hanged himself on the 25th of April 1644 and was buried in his consort Tian's tomb, which was later declared as an imperial mausoleum, though it's on a much smaller scale compared to the other imperial mausoleums. As usual, along with the majority of Beijing's other tourist attractions, you can find an awful lot of rubbish written about the Ming tombs on the internet, with so many scribblers obviously never having visited the place and simply copying and pasting everyone else's mistakes. Getting there is quite easy, I discover. The first stop on your journey should be the Sacred Way, or Shundao, which was the road leading to heaven. The emperor was regarded as the son of heaven and descended from heaven along this sacred road, and would subsequently return to heaven along this way. The Sacred Way leads straight up towards the ChangLing tomb. It's worthy of a walk, though, I guess, and starts with a stone memorial archway constructed in 1540, followed by the Great Red Gate with its 3 arches, and yet further in the Shengong Shengde steel pavilion of divine merits and sacred virtue, which was constructed in the 10th year of Emperor Xuande in 1435. During repairs made from 1785 to 7, it was converted to its present stone structure. 4 ornamental white marble huabiao, or pillars of glory, are positioned at each corner of the steel pavilion, topped with mythical beasts. Shortly after, you come to 2 pillars positioned on either side of the path. The surfaces are carved with clouds, and these served a bit like airport landing lights, beacons to guide the souls of the deceased. The path then leads to 18 pairs of stone statues and larger-than-life crouching and standing animals, including lions, camels, elephants, Chilean, horses, generals, civil officials and meritorious officials. They were constructed between the 1st and 3rd year of Emperor Zhengtong, and the stone came from the Dushu quarry in Fangshan. The elephants look quite cute in a funny kind of way, and certainly appear to have appealed to the great helmsman in 1954 when he stopped there to pose for a selfie. But I have to say I think the statues of the officials are somewhat more appealing. One nice thing about visiting on a cold winter's day is that you have practically the entire place to yourself without the summer crowds. After the statues is a 3-arched gate known as the Longfen Mun, or Dragon and Phoenix Gate, which symbolize the nobility of the monarchical system. And that's it for the Sacred Way. Hardly earth-shattering, but a pleasant walk all the same, though at 25 RMB it's a lot more expensive than attractions in downtown Beijing. Okay, so on to the tombs now. At present, only 3 are open to the public, there having been no excavations since 1989. ChangLing is the largest, DingLing has been excavated, and Jiaoling is almost completely renovated. You can jump onto an 872 or 879 bus to ChangLing, and this will take you about half an hour. But if, like me, you prefer a pleasant walk, you can do it in under an hour. ChangLing tomb was started in 1409 and finished in 1427, and it's where the third emperor, Chu Di, lies with his empress Shu Shi. It's said to be the best preserved among the 13 tombs, and has 3 courtyards in the front and a treasure city in the round rear part. According to mingtombs.eu, it was not only the emperor and the empress who were buried in ChangLing. In line with custom in those days, 16, some say 30 consorts were required to commit suicide. After an honorary feast, they were made to stand on a wooden bed with ropes around their necks, after which the bed was pulled away. They were all interred in the tomb. The architecture of ChangLing has the tomb chamber located at the foot of Tianshu Mountain and faces south. Its plan is square in the front and round in the rear. The tomb chamber, the treasure hill, the soul tower, the hall of eminent favours, and the gate of eminent favours lie lengthwise along the central axis, as is shown on a 1:250 scale model. 35 RMB gets you into ChangLing during the winter months. Once inside, the gate of eminent favour looks nice enough, though you will almost certainly have seen 100 other similar constructions all over Beijing. Through the gate there's a sacred silk burner on either side, where inscriptions and sacred silk materials were burned in sacrificial rites. But straight ahead, the Lingen Hall, or Hall of Eminent Favour, is covered in scaffolding, and even a brilliant blue sky can do nothing to dampen the feeling of extreme disappointment of this sight. The construction of this hall was started in 1409 and finished in 1427. Apparently, it used to be called Shang Hall, or Hall of Pleasure, but Emperor Jiajing renamed it when he paid a visit here, the Killjoy. It was constructed for placing the memorial tablets and costumes of the dead emperor, as well as for sacrificial rites. Its wooden components are made of Jinse Nanmu, a rare hard wood, and the hall has a double-eaved roof supported by 32 pillars. Half-hearted construction can be seen all around you, but at least they have the decency to warn visitors to keep a sense of Cantillon. Inside is a statue of the big fat emperor, together with loads of display cases containing pieces of jade, wooden models, and background information about the burial sites. In my view, this 1:50 scale model of the Lingen Hall is a load better than the hall itself. There's even a 1:4000 scale model of the Ming Tombs Valley, clearly showing the sacred way leading up to ChangLing. The displays explain that the siting of the Ming Dynasty imperial tombs was carefully chosen according to feng shui principles. According to these, bad spirits and evil winds descending from the north must be deflected. Therefore, an arc-shaped valley area at the foot of the Jundu Mountains, north of Beijing, was selected for the necropolis of the Ming Dynasty. Site selection began in 1407, the 5th year of Emperor Yongl's reign after the death of Empress Shu. Jiao Hong, Minister of Rites, led Liao Zhongqing and other geomancers to visit the outer suburbs of Beijing, according to the emperor's orders. Finally, Liao Zhongqing selected the auspicious Tianshu Mountain. Construction of the underground tomb chamber was started in 1409 and was completed in 1416, and this was followed by the construction of the above-ground architectures. At the back of the above-ground tomb area is the Ming Lo, or Soul Tower, which used to be wooden framed. But the tower was struck by a thunderbolt in 1604 and was rebuilt the next year with a new stele inscribed Mausoleum of Emperor Chengzu. After reconstruction from 1785 to 7, its frame was changed to stone and the secret stele inside was re-erected. Standing in front of the Soul Tower are the Wugong, the 5 sacrificial utensils, referring to the ancient symbolic stone-carved utensils. The incense burner has a round tripod shape with loop handles and 3 legs with clouds and a dragon carved on the lid. Candlesticks and vases are on its 2 sides. And that just about sums up ChangLing. Had I really come all the way out here to see this? My wallet is now 60 RMB lighter than it was when I started. But it's still not even 1 PM yet, so I decide to move on to DingLing. Yet again, tourbeijing.com tells us to take the 872 bus from ChangLing to DingLing, which takes about half an hour. But as it takes me almost exactly 30 minutes to walk it, and my map tells me it's a mere 3 kilometers distant, I somehow wonder if anyone at this website has ever been out this way. DingLing, literally Tomb of Stability, is the tomb of the Wanli Emperor. It's the only Ming tomb to have been excavated, and is also the only intact imperial tomb of any era to have been excavated since the founding of the People's Republic of China, a situation that is a direct result of the excesses of the infamous Cultural Revolution. According to Wikipedia, the excavation of DingLing began in 1956, after a group of prominent scholars began advocating the excavation of ChangLing. But despite winning approval from Premier Zhou Enlai, the plan was vetoed by archaeologists because of the importance and public profile of ChangLing. Instead, DingLing, the third largest of the Ming tombs, was selected as a trial site in preparation for the excavation of ChangLing. Excavation was completed in 1957, and a museum was established in 1959. The excavation revealed an intact tomb with thousands of items of silk, textiles, wood, and porcelain, and the skeletons of the Wanli Emperor and his 2 empresses. However, there was neither the technology nor the resources to adequately preserve the excavated artifacts. After several disastrous experiments, the large amounts of silk and other textiles were simply piled into a storage room that leaked water and wind. As a result, most of the surviving artifacts today have severely deteriorated, and many replicas are instead displayed in the museum. Furthermore, the political impetus behind the excavation created pressure to quickly complete the excavation. The haste meant that documentation of the excavation was poor. A more severe problem soon befell the project when a series of political mass movements swept the country. This escalated into the Cultural Revolution in 1966. For the next 10 years, all archaeological work was stopped. Fervent Red Guards stormed the DingLing Museum and dragged the remains of the Wanli Emperor and Empresses to the front of the tomb, where they were posthumously denounced and burned. Many more artifacts were also destroyed. It was not until 1979, after the death of Mao Zedong and the end of the Cultural Revolution, that archaeological work recommenced in earnest, and an excavation report was finally prepared by those archaeologists who had survived the turmoil. As a result, government policy is not to excavate any historical site except for rescue purposes, and the original plan, to use DingLing as a trial site for the excavation of ChangLing, was abandoned. Built from 1584 to 1590, DingLing is the mausoleum of Emperor Zhu Yijun, the 13th emperor of the Ming dynasty and his 2 empresses. The most celebrated part is the so-called underground palace, which was discovered between 1956 and 1958 and had a large number of precious relics unearthed. On approaching the tomb site, you pass huge coach and car parks that have been built, and as you near the entrance, there's a large modern frieze on the wall of one of the buildings depicting the layout of the site ahead. The tomb gate through which everyone passes gives little indication of what lies behind. But once inside, it's noticeable what a very much nicer place this is than either ChangLing or the Sacred Way. Okay, the entrance price here is 45 RMB, but compared with the other 2 sites, it's way better value. Stone ramps with the dragon and phoenix motif grace the stone staircases. And everywhere you look, there are signs that tell us not to portray. To what? It's a while before I tumble to the meaning. The guardians of the tomb are somewhat averse to the modern-day peasants scribbling graffiti on the walls. Actually, it appears that not just modern-day peasants and red guards have made their mark on the tombs. At DingLing, for instance, there used to be a Ling'en gate, but in 1644 it was burnt down during a peasant uprising. It was reconstructed during Emperor Qianlong's reign, but destroyed once again during the Republic of China period. The entrance to the underground chambers was discovered almost by accident. The tunnel gate was found because parts of the lateral bricks had collapsed. Archaeologists dug an exploration ditch, discovering the brick tunnel and a stone slab with the inscription of Tunnel Gate written on the wall. After another 2 exploration ditches had been dug, a stone slab with 16 characters engraved on it was discovered. 16 zhong further and 3.5 zhong deep to the diamond wall was written. 1 zhong equals 3.33 meters. And the stone tunnel, built with a very hard rock called porphyry, was quickly discovered. Finally, the diamond wall was found at the very end of the stone tunnel. The wall was built with 56 layers of bricks with yellow glazed tiles at the top. After the burial was completed, the openings would have been sealed with bricks and the tunnels blocked. In order to demonstrate to the world at large the status of the emperor, the tomb had to be sealed with earth and lined with trees. The deer-horn cypresses here are known as imperial cypresses and have been tested to be far older than the tomb itself, so it appears they were transplanted after the tomb was built. Standing to the north and south of the grand tomb mound, they fully indicate the prominent position of the emperor. It's a 10-minute walk from the entry gate to the entrance of the so-called underground palace. There's then a long walk down 8 flights of stone steps, whence we end up in the rear chamber. This is where the coffin bed is found, and is where the coffins of the emperor and his empresses, together with the funerary objects, were placed. The coffin of the emperor was in the middle, and those of the empresses were on either side of him. Jade was found between the coffins, and burial articles were stored in 26 cases made of Nanbu wood to the sides of each coffin. Chinese visitors love throwing their money around, even if the majority of the notes are 1 RMB or even 5 jiao. And wherever there's some relic, piles of paper money and coins are found lying there. Unlike the other sites, DingLing is obviously popular with the tourists, and in the narrow passageways one has to fight to be able to get through. Along from the coffin bed, in the middle chamber, there are stone thrones for the emperor and his consorts. Finally, we get to the stone gate inside the front chamber. It has a white marble arch with hip roof. Apparently the door was thicker at the hinges, 40 centimeters, but tapers down to 20 centimeters in the middle to relieve the pressure on the pivots, thus making the door easier to open with a reduced amount of friction. The stone gate was shut from inside with a stone slab. As we all mount the steps to reach daylight once more, there's an ominous warning posted up on many parts of the railings. But it appears that whoever made the signs ran out of space, so I'm still left wondering what we are not allowed to lean on. Other signs are clearer in their meaning. We must, it appears, exercise caution, as opposed to cantillon, in case of rocks cascading onto our heads from above, but how we are meant to exercise that caution we're never told. Finally, as the crowds leave the burial chamber, there's a sign that I feel might have been better placed at the entrance rather than the exit. Oh my God, I have high blood pressure, but I never did throw caution to the forward slope. Now they tell me.